Hey, welcome back everyone. It is another dev diary. Now, I knew that this was going to be a bag of tricks dev diary, one of those like compilations of little ones. Although, the idea was to just skip this one, but it's actually some interesting stuff. I want to talk about this, actually, showcase it. So, uh, yeah, basically there's a few nice features. There's attaches. There are ground crews. That would be a command power ability. That's the least interesting. Historical army insignias and volunteer air wings. The two big ones that are actually interesting are the volunteer air wings and the attaches. It's interesting because you can do these attaches with your command power, right? So still kind of confused about command power, but it seems like they're really starting to flesh out what you're actually going to be using it for. They said earlier on it was just for like the general abilities, but at this point it seems like they're really starting to flesh out what they do and making it a more, I guess, sought after resource, a more important resource. And it's interesting because attaches, of course, would be officers you send to an army that's fighting to observe what is happening and get either intelligence back or experience of the war. And it's interesting because you can also see, so you can see the receiver nation's war. That's kind of interesting. It's gonna have both a sort of intelligence background as a gameplay decision and an army experience background. Also, it's historically kind of important because nations sent attaches to each other all the time. And actually, for example, Japan's military developments in the 1920s and 30s were heavily influenced by attaches and observers that they had sent to the Entente powers in World War One. Also, sometimes attaches basically became spies for one side or the other. They would get information out to their governments. For example, like the Soviet naval attaché in Sweden, actually, before the Germans declared war, managed to send a warning to Moscow, like 2 days before or something, that the Germans would have invaded because the Germans had communicated to the Swedish Admiralty that to basically just pull the ships out of the Baltics because they would have sent, operations against the Soviets, and so they could have gotten caught in the crossfire. And so he was able to relay that information back to his government. Of course, Stalin didn't really pay heed to those warnings, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. So attaches are cool, and of course, will make any country the receivers at war with us dislike you, and they may issue a diplomatic protest that can seriously hurt your standing with them, as well as cause a stability loss depending on the relevant ideology. Okay, this is interesting, but I like this. Let's clarify this first, because anything that increases like the amount of diplomatic interactivity between various different diplomatic moves that you can have, it's good. But the problem is, why is this not a thing for volunteers? Because you would think that like sending an attaché, yeah, sure, whatever, you're, blah. But sending actual combat units, or heck, even Lend-Lease, to an enemy, why don't they issue this diplomatic protest? And I'm, air quoting, you cannot see that right now, but yeah, I have no idea. So they should really be updating their older features to reflect the newer, more developed features. But hey, whatever. So the extra ground crews, that's interesting. You can like improve your air efficiency, which is weird. I don't know. I guess another use for command power is fine. What's interesting about this picture as well is air supply. There's actual air. I think that's air transports on air supply. So that's cool. As you can see, it is. Well, that's because there's 0 planes, but it was. Yeah, it says -13 supply. I don't know. I guess the -13 is supposed to represent the entirety of the supply in the region. It's interesting from that. Hold the fort. From that like little icon there, shouldn't it be that it would represent the amount of supplies that the planes are actually inputting into a zone, so that you can better calculate how many planes to send to a zone or another using that? Plus, you can just switch to the supply map mode that is conveniently in the game just to see how much supply you need to put in. I don't know. That's just my idea. Historical army insignias, whatever. They're kind of flavor. It's weird though. Like they said, we have added historical army insignias to Germany, France, Britain, and the U.S. The Soviet Union and the Japanese didn't really do army insignias. Now, sure, but why can't this exactly like be circumvented by having just invented but plausible army insignias? I don't know. It's really weird, to be completely honest, because they're willing to completely circumvent history when it comes to like focus trees. So like how the game is actually played, because they're taking Hoi 4 down an alternate history first kind of a line. But army insignias that aren't historical? God forbid. Sure. That's kind of strange. Anyway, I like that. I like that because it's cool. So apparently, all told, there are 18 German icons. Of course, the most are German. 11 British icons, 8 US, and 3 French ones, as well as 10 shared icons that are available to everyone else. Some of them are locked behind certain ideologies. Huh. Okay. I think that the 10 that are available to everybody would be these, as you can see. Oh no, that's actually more than 10. That's 6, 12. Okay, so no, those are just the older army shields. And I guess there's going to be more. Yeah, so for example, you can see over there that star icon, you know, with that looks like an Allied star from World War II. That's probably one of those that are available to everyone else. Hold on. So there's 11 British icons, so that would be 3, 6, 9, 11. Yeah, okay. So those other 11 are unique British ones, and the lovely little star thing is one that's available to everyone. So it looks like democratic countries don't really have all that many icons that are available to everyone else, but it doesn't really matter because the Brits and the US and the French have their own icons, I guess. So that's kind of fine. So obviously, like, for example, you would want to have more icons available to, like, the commies because the Soviet Union doesn't have their own. So might as well. You know, make up for it. Volunteer Air Wings, awesome. Finally. Amazing. So, of course, the Flying Tigers, you know, the volunteer American pilots that went to China to fight the Japanese. It's great that that is actually a thing that you can do now, because I absolutely hated so much whenever I would send volunteer guys to a country. Of course, volunteers, you can't really send that many, so you are going to need a little bit of an extra edge to actually defeat opponents. And if they have air superiority, it gets hard. But, of course, you would send Lend-Lease. You would, you know, lend-lease your fighters or whatever to the country that you're supporting, and they would not use it, and they would still have air superiority. So I used to absolutely, like, it's a just absolutely minor detail, I know, but it was really, really pissing me off. So you can now have, like, the Condor Legion you can see on the screen, and the Flying Tigers. Flying Tigers, of course, have also an event. They get a special decision for the United States if China gets the Flying Tigers focus. I believe, I recall from the focus tree that there is a focus for the Flying Tigers. And, of course, the USA can decide to do that. What's cool about that is that, like, the AI isn't going to be, like, derpy. I'm guessing that the AI is going to be good about using the visions. So, yeah, if you're China, you're going to have the Flying Tigers. So that's pretty cool. And, yeah. And the Flying Tigers are awesome. Overall, though, other than this, there isn't really anything else. What is that number under there? I have no idea. There's like an 80 out of 400 for the airfield, and then an 80 out of 198. I guess that would be how many air volunteers you can send. Yeah, I think that would be how many air volunteers you can send. I wonder how they're going to calculate that limit. Probably total, you know, number of planes divided by something. If you're fascist and more, blah, 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 all of this. You know, this also has an implication for, like, modern day mods. You can have, like, the coalition airstrikes on ISIS or whatever without the United States actually being dragged into the war. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. Yeah, that's all that I had to talk about. So I want to thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you soon. Yeah, I believe I also wanted to do some stuff, but hey, I'll talk about that soon. Yeah, have a nice one.